final question, taking us back to Venice, Monty. You seem to be a man who is deeply rooted in the land. Could you ever live in a watery city?
No.
Thank you very much.
I need the soil. I need the soil. Venice is beautiful to visit, but I don't want to live in any city. And I don't think Ned would like it either. Get down, you silly boy.
I think it'd be quite funny, wouldn't it, if we actually told our listeners there was no dog involved in this interview. It's just Monty's developed a rather strange
invisible dog who can also make noises. But I suspect Monty Don might be in the off-air podcast tonight. So, Monty, this is your big moment. The presenter of Gardener's World, of course. He's a gardening columnist. He's the first ever presenter of Gardener's World not to be a professionally trained horticulturist, which at the time of his appointment caused a certain amount of consternation. His lovely new book, and it is lovely, it's ideal for somebody who's a garden lover or a lover of Venice. Over the Christmas period, you might like to splash out on Venetian Gardens by Monty Don and Derry Moore, who's taken some wonderful photographs. Monty, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm fine. Yes, I'm still thinking about this thing of being the professionally unprofessional gardener. I didn't know that was still doing the rounds.
Well, I looked on Wikipedia, Monty, and there it was. So I thought, right, that's it. I'll put it to him. But actually, back in the day, and it does seem ridiculous now, but when you were appointed to Gardener's World, there was a bit of a reaction, wasn't there? Not all of it was all that positive.
No, I mean, I'd be disingenuous if I said that wasn't the case. I think there was this feeling, and it started with Percy Thrower, I suppose, and lingered on, that somehow, the nation's head gardener should have come through the ranks and be a kind of salt of the earth, a kind of butler outside, wearing a waistcoat and preferably a tie, even in the muckiest situation. And it was, I always felt that was very class-ridden and sort of hidebound and unnecessary. And the truth is that the great joy of British gardening is that it's a nation of incredibly skillful and knowledgeable amateurs gardening at home in their own gardens. And the nature of a professional gardener is you garden for other people.
Is there a bit of a class element, though, to gardening in Britain and to attitudes towards gardens and gardeners?
Yeah, always has been. I mean, there always has been. It's never more evident than at Chelsea, and I don't know when it changed, but it was remarkably recently, really, is that a professional gardener couldn't enter plants at Chelsea. They're always entered in the name of their employer. So you would have Lord and Lady Diddleypush winning gold medals at Chelsea for something that they probably had nothing to do with. Every aspect of British life sooner or later hits the rocks of class, and gardening is no exception. But I do think that is changing. And I think that one of the great joys of the last 10 years or so is that there's a new generation coming through, sort of the age of my children in their sort of early 30s, that absolutely have none of that. And are just not interested in that kind of attitude. It's just irrelevant.
I just see in the background there a beautiful dog fast asleep, already lulled into... Who's that? Which one is that?
That's Ned.
Oh, the new
he's a puppy.
He's a puppy.
Yes.
He's a puppy. Ned, are you asleep? Yes, thank you very much. Yes. Surrounded by bits of paper, which you probably can't see.
He's just woken up.
He's woken up. Ned. Ned, come and say hello. Come here. Good boy. Come on. Come here. He's very sleepy. I don't know why. Come here, Ned.
This is absolutely
golden radio.
But Ned is trying
I'm going to say, nothing could work better on radio than
I did say I wasn't any good at commentary, and I've completely failed again in the audition.
Do you know what? Ned's not going to play ball with us.
No, Ned's not playing ball. He said if it's not television, he's not going to do it.
Okay, fair enough. He's an absolute... I'll have a word with him later. So your book about Venice and the gardens there, I mean, it's an obvious question, but when I think Venice, I don't think gardens. So and these gardens in Venice are hidden, are they? What kind of gardens?
Yeah, I mean... You say it's always good. The reason why we've done the book was because Venice, for all its incredible beauty, is not normally yoked with gardens in most visitors' minds, and yet they are there. Hundreds of gardens. They tend to be hidden away. They tend to be glimpsed as you pass by on a boat. You just see a bit of a courtyard or greenery through a gate, tantalizing, and then you glide past and glide on. And we wanted to get into as many of those as we could. Inevitably, there were some that we couldn't visit. that we really wanted to, and others that we didn't know about that we discovered, but they're there. And they tend to be small, they tend to be private, but in many ways that's their charm, the fact that they're not great sort of set pieces, and yet are intimate and small and have history. And like the rest of Venice, very often they're slightly crumbling. There's an air of decay, which I think very much adds to their charm.
It sounds very misty and alluring, doesn't it? You say in the book that Venetians are a very secretive people, and I suppose when I read that, I thought I kind of know that, but I don't know why. Why would they be secretive?
I think it's partly because Venice is obviously it's a series of islands, and it's always been cut off, and they have always seen themselves as independent of the rest of the world. I mean, they call anyone who doesn't live in Venice foreigners. So the mainland of Italy was always a foreign country for most of the history of Venice. So it's by default secluded, insular, introverted, cut off, and suspicious of the outside world, and of course was immensely successful. I mean, for most of its history, Venice has been rich and powerful. The Republic of Venice stretched right into the Ottoman world, and the trade that it did, into the Middle East, the Levant as it was, and up the Adriatic, made it rich and powerful. So it sort of garnered up these riches. And the other thing about Venice was that it had its own system of government. It was a republic. It didn't have kings and queens, and it was based upon trading. There was no aristocracy. Anybody could be a trader. So there was this very intricate, hermetic world that didn't need the outside world very much. They were self-sufficient.
And so how does that pan out, and does it influence the way that many Venetians feel now about people coming to look at their city? I mean, there are a lot of people who live there who believe that the city is being ruined by tourism. There's just too many people going. Where does that leave you as someone who's kind of advertising their wares?
Well, like everybody else, confused and slightly sad, actually. I mean, Venice is still, I think, the most beautiful city in the world. It's undoubtedly in decline. The population now, I think, is down to about 50,000. And that's less than half of what it was in its prime. Things like Airbnb are disastrous because people are finding that it's more economic to go and live on the mainland and rent out their houses and then come into Venice, so they stop living there. There are far fewer and fewer. By the way, can you see in the puppy on this radio program?
What is he up to now?
He is making love in a sort of completely platonic way to a shoe.
Yes, I did notice he was giving something a really good going over.
I tell you what, we
Yes.
do not want to describe his pose currently.
We absolutely don't. Although
it's uninhibited.
It certainly is, Monty.
It's revealing most of his best assets. He is.
Oh dear.
He's a 3-month-old puppy. He's a child. Let's go back to Venice before we get waylaid too far. I love the way that
Can we get back on board? Let's get back on board with the Doges, please.
Thank you, Fee. Plough on, Monty.
The thing about Venice is that it is sinking. The population is leaving. The population is getting older. There's not much there for young people. There are fewer and fewer sort of corner shops and groceries and all the sort of normal retail and entertainment facilities that you need to sustain a population. It's the most wonderful place to visit in the world, and yet it's not very good to live in.
But I have to put it to you that this book is not going to discourage visitors, is it?
No, but that's the catch-22. I mean, it's Venice. This is not a new story. This has been going on arguably since the end of the 17th century. Venice's decline absolutely took place throughout the 18th century and into the 19th and the 20th. So that we all go to admire its decline. We all go to celebrate the romanticism of Venice slowly slipping into ruination.
So Ned is being cuddled by Monty, and the look of adoration that he's just given his master It's extraordinary.
It's transporting.
It is.
Monty, can you rejoin us? Is that okay?
Yes, it is. I'm struggling with I had to have to put Ned down because he's getting wriggly. But he's a very handsome boy.
He's lovely.
Incredibly appealing dog. How old is he now, Monty?
He is now, what, 15 weeks?
Oh my gosh.
Growing
He's
all the
still
time.
So bouncy. So bouncy.
And wants to go out. Okay, down you go. Go on. That's a good boy. Whoa, there you go. Right, he's gone back to the shoe.
Yeah, don't mind us.
I'm back in the room.
Okay,
I'm with you.
Okay.
You're on tour at the moment, aren't you? You had a whole range of dates over the weekend.
Yes, I came back yesterday. I was in Newcastle yesterday morning, and then I was speaking in Salford yesterday afternoon. And I've been in Harrogate, I've been in Oxford, I've been in Hereford.
Okay, and what is the most common question? Which one crops up time?
I don't
and
take
time
questions. No. Well, not on tour. I never take a question.
Don't you?
No, I don't actually, because I do a sort of stage show. I do a one-man show, and it slightly breaks the spell if then people start to talk about their fungus or their.
You obviously haven't been to one of
leaves.
our shows, Monty, which are littered with exactly that sort of thing.
We welcome fungus.
Goes down very well.
Time we're straight into the fungus.
And also, the truth is that when you go answer any gardening questions, and I do sort of question and answer things in some places.
Yeah.
It's always about things that are very, very important to individuals, but usually there, out of 2,000 people in the audience, there are only 3 other people who are remotely interested.
Right.
And I'm often not one of them.
I'm amazed Gardener's question time has lasted so long on that other station.
Well, it's a state of mind. So I try and entertain and inform and generally sort of, make them laugh, make them cry, and share that. So if we then go down the road of why something isn't flowering or fruiting or growing or doing what you want it to do, I always feel that's a bit of not really what's needed.
Are you paying a great deal of attention to what happens at COP27?
Well, yes and no, because I tend to think my score is that there are a lot of people spending a lot of money and energy doing a lot of talking and not achieving very much. Ned, come here. Come here. Just
so what, you wouldn't do it at all, or you'd do it virtually?
I'd do it virtually. Why not? We're doing this virtually. We've all learnt to do things virtually. Yes, you do have... What? Sorry about this.
Do you know what?
Ned,
it's not the best
here.
time to be advertising a virtual interview.
Just about to say. Swings and roundabouts, isn't it, Fee?
You've got to leave to go and sort out your dog. I wonder whether Rishi will have that problem at just gone 4 o'clock.
Well, he has a
afternoon.
dog. The thing is that, I feel like everybody else, climate change and what we have to do about it is incredibly present and important, and is not something that is vaguely for politicians to do. I also think that it's not something that extreme dramatic action is going to change. We all have to change in lots and lots of different ways. And the way that we're going to change the world is by getting everybody to buy into it rather than lecturing people about what they ought to do or must do, however urgent it is. You only make people change when they decide that they want to change. And I think that's a real problem. And that's something that politicians and people like you and people like me have to play our part in.
Yeah.
But
so one of the most effective ways...
There's a strong element of comedy about this.
There is, isn't there? I'm going to battle on with this serious question, though, if you don't mind. One of the most effective ways to get people to change their behaviour is to nudge them through positivity. So, you spend your life, I believe, doing something that you really absolutely love out in the natural world. What would you say to someone who doesn't have access to that kind of world, something that would make them better understand why it is important to change?
Well, we all consume food, and food that is grown. All food, one way or t'other, comes out of the ground. So that, one of the problems with modern life is the great disconnect that most people have with the food they eat, whereas gardeners, it's an entry into a very direct form of connection. So we need to educate our children about how to grow food, where it comes from, how it's seasonality, freshness, and all that kind of thing. And also, we all use plastic, we all travel, we all use oil, we share these things, and there is no demarcation line. It's all connected. It's not, one of the things that is happening actually with gardening, which is a very good thing, is that the new generation in their 20s and 30s don't have gardens and very often see no chance of having access to owning a house with a garden, but they still love plants. They still might even have pot plants or house plants. They go for walks, they travel, they see things, and they are connected. On top of that, in a much more sort of obvious way, I would love it if a government took much more seriously the role of allotments in people's lives. So people who don't have gardens could go and do it. I went and visited an allotment in Knaresborough on Saturday. Over 100 allotments. It was a grey, rainy November day, and it was beautiful and brilliant. And there were allotments for individuals, or allotments for groups, or allotments for children, for old age pensioners, for people with problems and difficulties. It worked on every level as a communal good. So I think, it's a multi-pronged thing. I don't think there's one true way. And I think the solution to the enormous problem of climate change is all of us working together in a cooperative way, lots and lots of small changes, rather than the drama of rushing off to COP20, whatever it is, spouting around, making pledges, and then not keeping them. It's a waste of time and energy.
Can we just have a quick question about, I think you have said that you have seasonal affective disorder. I know you've talked in the past about depression, and for a lot of people, this is easily the armpit of the year, isn't it? November.
It sure is.
It's dark in about 10 minutes.
From now till Christmas is the worst time of year. Yeah. It's a thing. It's a genuine thing. I mean, at the moment, I feel fine. So thanks be to that. But I think one of the things you have to do, although it feels counterintuitive at the time, is just get outside. Get into what light there is. Go for a walk. If it's driving rain, go for a walk. Walk in the park. Walk in your street if there are trees. Just move, get outside, and also try and see people, talk to people. And I think also accept, plants have a hibernation time, accept that we all need a time when we don't feel great, when we're not at our best, but that's all right because it'll get better. And again, that's the great lesson you get from gardening is things might be quite bad, but they can get better. It is possible. And if you have faith in that, then that carries you through some of the darker days, but it's not easy. And I have enormous sympathy and empathy for anyone who's going through a hard time at the moment. It's difficult.
One final question, taking us back to Venice, Monty. You seem to be a man who is deeply rooted in the land. Could you ever live in a watery city?
No.
Thank you very much.
I need the soil. I need the soil. Venice is beautiful to visit, but I don't want to live in any city. And I don't think Ned would like it either. Get down, you silly boy.
I think it'd be quite funny, wouldn't it, if we actually told our listeners there was no dog involved in this interview. It's just Monty's developed a strange behaviour.
Invisible dog who can also make noises. He is so beautiful. He is actually a great advertisement for puppydom, isn't he, Ned?
He is, yeah.
And he is, of course, available on the telly because he's on Gardener's World now as well.
And Monty's there too.
Oh, yeah, and Monty.
But yeah, you're right. He's being upstaged at the moment. Monty Don's book is available just in time for Christmas. It is a weighty thing, but it's very, very beautiful indeed. And it's just called Venetian Gardens.
He's also one of the few men who carries off a scarf. A few British men who carries off a scarf.
We might have discussed that later.